This is the YOBaLOGUE for Your Other Brothers podcast.
Welcome, friends, to not Your Other Brothers podcast, but kind of, sort of. Call this a spinoff or an extension or a bonus episode. I mean, that's what we're calling it. We're calling it the YOBaLOGUE. And this is a monthly bonus episode just for our faithful Patreon supporters, for our yobbers and our yobbies. Technically, if you pledge $1 a month, you're not quite a yobber, you're a yobby. But you're welcome at the table as well in this episode. And I'm really excited to put this together. This is the first episode of the YOBaLOGUE, so it's gonna, remember how that first episode of some of your favorite shows were? Maybe some of them were great, but some of them were weird. Like the first episode of Parks and Rec, the first episode of The Office. There's some just kind of weird, awkward, like, what is this? And it's a show trying to figure itself out. And I think that's kind of how I see this show going. There is a schedule, and I'm about to tell you everything that's about to happen in this episode. So it's not completely just Tom winging it. But it's a little unusual because this is the first episode of any podcast I've ever done that's featuring just me. There is nobody else here with me, and it would be very challenging to have someone else here with me because I am quite literally not in a closet, not even in a closet. A closet would be luxurious compared to where I am right now. I'm actually in my wardrobe. Yes, my wardrobe. I feel like I could transport to Narnia at any moment. Any moment now. I'm like feeling the back of the wardrobe, and I'm like literally there's a sweater behind me and a coat in front of me. And at any moment, I could fall into that portal. In which case, y'all, like, bless me on my way, because I am more than ready to go to Narnia at any moment. But yeah, no, I'm like in my studio apartment. There's this wardrobe that came with it, and you know, it's not huge by any means, but I can fit in here, and I feel like the sound quality is pretty good. Locking myself in here, and hopefully I don't pass out and suffocate in this little tightly enclosed place. But anyway, I'm in a wardrobe, and this is the YOBaLOGUE, and the way I see the YOBaLOGUE going, it's kind of a cross between a dialogue and an epilogue. I see it as an epilogue, maybe as a follow-up to the last episode, so this will be a great opportunity to kind of carry the conversation forward, and by carrying the conversation forward, we can do that with a dialogue. We set up a phone number, revealed that on the last episode of Your Other Brothers podcast. So people, listeners, you guys can call with feedback on the last episode or just questions, comments, stories from your life in general. If you want to just say, hey, if you want to thank us for what we're doing, if you want to criticize us, I mean, there's really no limit to what you can say on our voicemail. Now, there's a limit, of course, to what I'll accept and premiere on this episode, but stay tuned. We do have 2 listener calls that I'm going to show, that I'm going to listen, that I'm going to play back. There we go. That's the right verb. 2 listener calls I'm going to play for y'all, and then I'll talk about it. And potentially along the way in the YOBaLOGUE, in the history of the YOBaLOGUE, who knows, maybe guests will make an appearance. Maybe it won't just be Tom trapped in Narnia for 30 minutes. I see these episodes being about 30 minutes. I think that's a good length. I don't need this thing to, drag on for hours and hours and hours. I think a good 20-minute, my plan is 20 minutes of intro, reading comments on the blog, on the last podcast, potentially any emails that came in about that episode, the listener calls, and then stay tuned. The end of the episode, we will have bonus content that was cut from the original Your Other Brothers podcast episodes. So silly stuff, maybe some serious stuff too, probably some serious stuff too, but just stuff that couldn't make it into the hour and a half that we had for the episode. That'll be the last, I envision, maybe the last 5 to 10 minutes, depending how much content we have from that episode. But every YOBaLOGUE, you can stay tuned for that. And maybe that's really all you care about. Maybe you don't care about any of this intro matter. If that's the case, okay, that's fine. You can fast forward to the last 5 minutes and listen to me, Ryan, and Dean as we talked about change. And we had plenty of hilarious moments and cuts from that episode. So that'll be at the end of this episode of the YOBaLOGUE. Wanted to read some comments, just a couple, from our most recent podcast on change, which I got an email actually, because I wasn't expecting this, but I got an email from somebody who said it was our best episode yet, which is pretty high praise. Hopefully it wasn't hyperbole. Hopefully that was genuine. I choose to believe it was genuine. But yeah, I mean, our best episode yet. We've gotten a lot of comments on great episodes. Probably the one that comes about most often is either one or two of our marriage episodes or our emotional dependency episode. Those tend to get a lot of positive feedback. People intentionally reaching out and saying, yeah, that was really awesome. Best episode you've ever done. But yeah, somebody did comment and send an email about our change episode as being the best episode we've ever done. So I appreciate that. Thanks for that email to our faithful listener there. And then on our blog, we had our comments. So if you go to yourotherbrothers.com/podcast, you can read these comments that people left on our change episode. This is from He Is the One, a precious brother. I feel like every time I read a comment from He Is the One, I always like turn my head a little bit and squint my eyes a little bit and chuckle and pontificate. There's a lot of reactions that happen. But no, he's great. I love his faithfulness in commenting. He's been one of our most consistent, faithful commenters for a really long time. But there was a part of the episode where we talked about playing Twister at the retreat and how Ryan won. Well, Ryan told two stories of winning one Twister match and then losing another one by basically standing up and just falling. No like bending arms and hands to red and green and blue, just standing on yellow and falling over. So regarding Twister, this is what He Is the One said. Regarding Twister, nude or otherwise, because this is a sidebar, I made a sarcastic, completely not true comment about playing nude Twister. Did not happen on the retreat, but just follow this train. He Is the One. Regarding Twister, nude or otherwise, I think I have a better idea. You need to have a wrestling tournament. In my home state of Iowa, young men routinely settle disputes this way. I appreciate that comment from He Is the One. The wrestling tournament, yeah, I've never full on wrestled except when I worked at camp. I worked at a camp 6 years ago. One of the activities during staff week was lining or circling up all the guys around this massive mud pit. And it was literally a hole of gooey, goppy mud. Like it was thick and there was little pebbles in there. It was huge. I don't even know, like 30 feet across, 20 feet across, 50 feet across. I don't know. It was a gigantic hole because we had to circle, I don't know, roughly 60 guys around the circle. So you can imagine how big this hole was. And one of the activities, one of the fun parts of being on staff with with that camp was they would throw a kickball into the middle of the mud pit. And then one guy from each tribe, there were 5 tribes, would dive into the pit when the whistle was blown and try to get the ball back to their side of the hole, their edge of the hole. And so you can imagine the terror. I didn't write about this in the book. I'm surprised I never wrote about this in my book, Struggle Central. It was just one of those stories. I had so many stories from that summer about testing my masculinity, but that was one of them for sure. When the whistle was blown and I jumped into the mud pit, and I'm like, 150 pounds. I've been a runner my whole life. So I had this initial burst of energy where I was actually the one to grab the ball first. And I've for probably not even half a second, maybe like a tenth of a second, had this moment of victory and just absolute unadulterated joy that I had both hands on the ball. And I heard my tribe mates behind me cheering my name. There was such an exultant aura from that side of the mud pit. And then literally, it probably wasn't even a half a second, certainly a full second later, that I had 4 other guys, probably upwards of 500 pounds, 600 pounds, barreling down on me to where I went beneath the mud and honestly thought I was going to die. I could not breathe anymore and relinquished my hold on the ball. And actually, no, I gave it a decent effort. There was no way I was going to get physically to my side of the hole while 500 pounds was pulling me the other way. But all that to say, that's the closest I've come to wrestling. I've never wrestled one-on-one with anybody, but I have mud wrestled with 4 other dudes in a gigantic pit of mud and came away from that experience with some, I was going to say some scars. I'm not actually scarred by that experience. I had some physical scars for a little while. I had this cut on my abdomen and, yeah, it was an experience. But thank you for He Is the One for triggering that memory in me. I'm curious if any of y'all have wrestled either like athletically in a school environment or just with friends. If you guys have wrestled, if you've made that a routine thing that you guys bond over, or if that's something you've ever wanted to try or do, recommend if you've done it or not recommend if you've done it. I'm curious. Give me a call, 706-389-8009. Tell me your wrestling stories. I think it would be fun to like build these YOBaLOGUE episodes again because it's a dialogue. I'd love to build these episodes so that the next YOBaLOGUE I do, if there was 3 or 4 wrestling stories that I could listen to and play on the episode, that would be amazing. And just a side tangent, remember, if you call, you don't have to tell me your name, you don't have to tell me your age, you don't have to tell me any identifying details, where you live, etc. If you just say, hey, love the show, I have a story to share, that's totally fine. I mean, you can obviously share as much as you want. But yeah, it's only for these bonus episodes. It's not for the public. These episodes will never be put on for the public, at least not the listener call segments. I might do some teasers or something in the future. But yeah, as far as the listener calls, those are only for our Patreon feed. So you can maybe rest assured that it'll stay somewhat private. But anyway, would love to hear wrestling stories. That might be a fun podcast episode at some point. Physical touch to the extreme. Pretty much. All right, and then I wanted to dive into this comment. It's from Jonavan, or John Evan, or John Evan. There's all kinds of ways I could say that. He had this really long comment, which I'll read to the extent, and then I have a lot of thoughts on it. So here we go. So again, this is in reference to our Authors Retreat episode where we talked about change, and where we referenced that there was 10 of us from all over the country in this single house together for a few days. And here's what John Even says, but how do you guys do it? I mean, spending time together, like retreats and living arrangements, despite your SGA, which I guess SGA, SSA, same-sex attraction, same gender attraction, could be interchangeable. He continues, I could never see myself going to a retreat, as you have described, where with yobbers gathered from many places. Never. ! Never. That kind of change I can't envision for me. That kind of change for me regarding guys, especially guys with SGA that I might be attracted to, is the admonition of Paul to Timothy. Flee. So I flee such encounters, preferring and choosing carefully the guys I spend quality time with. I suppose that kind of change in my intentionality toward guys keeps me sane and okay. It might sound an immature way of handling my SGA and maybe seem unwise, but it is the only way I can stay emotionally healthy. So that's change for me. You guys have something I could not imagine for myself. I do admire you for it. And gosh, I felt a lot of things reading that for the first time. I felt confusion. I felt sadness. I felt, I don't know, just a hunger to understand and gratefulness for what I have. Because I can't speak into this person's story. I have no idea what his past is. I can't say like, no, you just need to hang out with other SGA guys, SSA guys, gay identifying guys, and just get over it and it'll be fine. That's obviously a cold-hearted response. But I don't know. There's a part of me, though, that just feels really sad and disconnected from this comment because in my history of, the last 10 years now of telling these stories online and connecting with these brothers, making some of the best friends I've ever made. And on an emotional level, sure. But spiritually, I have met some of the most spiritual giants in my life through your other brothers and through Zanga, which came before your other brothers. Like, I've met some incredibly wise and strong and courageous men. And it's just disheartening to think that at any point in my journey, I could have just said, nope, like it's too tempting. Like I'm going to be attracted to some of them. I'm going to have tempting thoughts about some of them. So I'm just going to cut that cord and just not pursue friendship with any of them, not go to retreats with them, not visit them, not invite them over to where I live, not even live with them, I don't know. Like I get really sad when I start thinking about stuff like that because I think people can trigger things in us. And they don't have to be sexual things. They could be anger. They could be hatred. It could be greed. It could be any of the deadly sins or otherwise. I think when you pursue relationship with anybody, there's always going to be that option to take it to a dark place or to let your own weaknesses, your own shortcomings get the better of you. And so, I don't know. My encouragement, I wouldn't necessarily tell John to get over it and just start becoming friends with SSA guys because he might be missing out, and he very well might be missing out on the people in his life or people in this community. But at the same time, I'd also, just challenge anyone who's questioning, how does that work? Like, how do you become friends with somebody that you share a common sexuality with? And like my number one response is that you're not going to be attracted to every single person. I mean, I think that's kind of obvious, right? Like just because you're attracted to women doesn't mean you're attracted to every woman. And just because you're attracted to men doesn't mean you're attracted to every man. And so that's like a first realization maybe. But yeah, even in the ones that I've been attracted to, because I'd be lying if I said I wasn't attracted to any of my SSA friends. And a lot of that comes from the emotional and comes from the spiritual and just comes from an admiration more so than a physical or a sexual stimulus. There are a lot of guys that I look at and I just smile. I'm like, wow, that is a beautiful man from the outside in, from the inside out. And it doesn't mean I need to pursue any kind of a physical sexual response to this feeling, this admiration, this attraction. We did an attraction episode. You know, we choose our friends because we're attracted to them. There's something about them that's attractive, and vice versa. They see something attractive in us that wants to pursue a relationship. And there's nothing wrong with the attraction. It's what you do with it. And so, yeah, maybe it's maturity, maybe it's just life's journey, but hang in there. If you're curious about SSA friendship with other gay identifying guys, like, lean into that. I think it's good to be wise, and it's good to get counsel, and it's good to pray about it. But I wouldn't just write it off. I definitely wouldn't just write off that option. Because, you might be depriving yourself, and you might be depriving others, actually, of a fantastic connection. So thanks, John, for commenting. Hopefully that was helpful to some of y'all. I didn't expect to talk about it that much, but hopefully that was good. So that's it. Stay tuned. This end of the episode is for bonus content, so stuff that we cut from the last episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope it gives you a better picture of what we do, the fun that we have, the talks, the stories that we share. And I just want to thank you guys for supporting your other brothers, not just the podcast, but this community, this ministry, this work, all the stories that we share, from the written word to the spoken word to the visual word in our videos. Thanks for supporting us. It's been on my mind for a while now to do more bonus content and kind of give you guys more of an inside track on your other brothers. And so that's part of the effort with this. We're cutting back on the public podcast, but increasing the bonus podcast, and there might be other bonus content to come. And who knows, as our pledges rise, potentially more public content to come as well. So enjoy the bonus content. For all your other brothers, this is Tom. And I probably need a good sign off for this. So if y'all have, as my stomach growls, if y'all have a good sign off for me for the YOBaLOGUE, maybe give me a call. But for now, until that time, see ya.
This is your other brothers podcast.
Do one more with the emphasis on the is. Instead of saying this is, do this is.
That's the same emphasis. You just want me to say it differently. This is your other brothers podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
That cannot happen.
Oh my gosh. What happens if it happens? I'm going to have to say it again. You a knucklehead.
It's definitely a recording. I just don't hear it. We'll do these recording levels.
Man, that's terrible.
Okay. Did you get all the voices out?
Do you like my Charles Barkley? It's not bad, right?
No.
Man, that's terrible.
It's kind of wimpy.
Man,
All
you
right.
knucklehead.
So first you'll say this is your other brother podcast.
Knucklehead.
So say that 3 times for me with the break in between is.
I will break as I deem necessary.
Wait, how did I say it?
YOBaLOGUE. Do 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 do. YOBaLOGUE. Do 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 do. A YOBaLOGUE. Do, 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 do,
Say,
do,
this
do,
is
do, do, do,
YOBaLOGUE
do, do.
for your other brother's podcast.
A YOBaLOGUE. Do, do.
Did you hear what I said?
Nope, I haven't paid
This
attention.
is the YOBaLOGUE
No, go
for
ahead.
your other brother's podcast.
Wait, one more time.
This is the YOBaLOGUE.
The YOBaLOGUE.
It's like dialogue, but YOBaLOGUE.
This is the
This is the
YOBaLOGUE.
YOBaLOGUE for your other brother's podcast.
Okay.
But don't forget to pause.
4. Welcome to the YOBaLOGUE with your other brother's podcast.
No.
What was it?
This is the YOBaLOGUE.
What's wrong with the welcome?
No.